Architecture is built, or at least has a semblance of being built, a hope or an aspiration to eventually find its home in bricks and mortar. The futurist Antonio Centella produced pen and ink drawings of what he called La Città Nuova. These were never realised, but they are still firmly seated in a reality. A far-fetched reality maybe, where planes can land in the city centre and high-speed rails terminate under public plazas. Paper architecture has an ambition for the physical. This is outdated. Humanity is beginning a transition from physical to digital, the extent of which no one can be entirely certain, but it is undeniable. In the newly occupiable cyber realm, we find ourselves in spaces designed not by architects, but by software engineers and developers. Physical architecture should no longer be the sole aspiration of our profession. There is new land to be built upon, new site, and new context. Cyberspace is a deceiving term. As it stands, cyberspace should be cyber-flat. Digital spaces, even those which are given the virtuality of 3 dimensions, are flat, experientially and phenomenologically. Each iPhone owner is now notified of their screen time, a measure of the duration of the day, week, or year we spend not looking into physical space, but through a 16:9 window into a digital space. A space that is, as of yet, undesigned. Current virtual spaces are in a way the virtual vernacular architecture, designed by programmers, not architects. What I advocate for is an architecturally designed cyberspace that carries with it, provides for, and stimulates all that its brother in reality does. In all previous centuries, architecture has plotted a trajectory towards the built form. Almost all of architectural discourse is centered around the physical, with the digital being a tool for realizing the physical. Virtual reality, or what we would see as the closest correlation to a digital space, is given a cheapness, a cornucopia of attractions, not architecture, but a theme park. Virtual reality, in its current form, is taking the same trajectory as Tom Gunning's conception of the cinema of attraction, which, rather than being an involvement with narrative action or empathy with character psychology, the cinema of attractions solicits a highly conscious awareness of the film image, engaging the viewer's curiosity. The spectator does not get lost in a fictional world and its drama, but remains aware of the act of looking, the excitement of curiosity, and its fulfillment. The cinema of attractions harks back to film's roots, where the medium was seen as an illusion or a conjuring trick. The Lumiere brothers' film of a train approaching a station is famous for its impact on audiences who were startled at the life-size projection of a train approaching them, fearing for their safety. They sat somewhere between illusionists and filmmakers. In its early days, film had the same connotations of attraction as virtual reality does now. It is time now for virtual spaces to be given the dignity that film now enjoys. Architecture has always been focused on providing for people, and now humans are more than just physical beings. The window of a phone screen or laptop display is now a more powerful framing device than a window in a wall of a building. The view is not fixed, and anything can be seen through it. Here it is important to draw a distinction. Virtual architecture is not linked to virtual reality. If limited to just creating VR and AR spaces, there will always be a tendency towards this attractions. More than just simulations, images, renderings, and interfaces on a screen, virtual architecture stimulates. This is to design cyberspace as if it were a real space. A simple analysis would say this, that physical architecture's great advantage is that it engages the senses through inhibition and presence. Designs such as Dilys Schofield and Renfro's Blur building are architecture of pure atmosphere that places its occupant in a world where their senses are heightened. The pavilion sat over a lake in Switzerland and used the indigenous material of that site, water, to create a cloud above the invisible structure. The aim described by Elizabeth Diller was to create a design that blinds its occupants in a cloud which forces interactions of a different sort. This is phenomenology, or atmosphere on an exaggerated scale. The concern here is how can these things be captured in a virtual environment. It is perhaps less about creation and more about conjuring. Cinema is perhaps a good example here. As with the industry's adoption of digital film cameras, which resulted in crisper, more real images with increased fidelity, a subset of directors began returning to celluloid. Hollywood directors such as J.J. Abrams is a champion of the analog, but harks back to the likes of Andrei Tarkovsky and films like Stalker, which was allegedly reshot 3 times based on the materiality of its film stock affecting the image so greatly. There is a sensibility towards the materiality here. With celluloid reproduction, there is colour sensibility, grains, which give the image depth. The texture of the image has a profound impact on the viewer in creating a sensory response. Successfully bringing about a digital phenomenology will mean a departure from oculocentrism. The computer screen and even AR or VR is still very fixated on the occupant's vision. The great advantage of the digital, though, is that it always is representative. It always exists as a consequence of reality. Sensation and emotion that are so crucial to phenomenological architecture, conjured through sensations of being in a space, can be replicated by the atmospheres of a digital space. The virtual architect, like a filmmaker using grain and colour grading to capture emotion and sensation, must design in a way that influences the user's state of mind. The transparency of a curtain wall facade becomes a fluidity in the virtual. A deep concrete wall carries a coolth and is imbued with a strength. Neither of these traits are present as an image on the screen, but if treated in the right way, these lost signified threads can be reattached to its original sign. The virtual architecture then will be architecture of the sign, where the occupant will be required to be participatory in bringing about a virtual in an echo-esque relationship.
The accelerating rate of men's progress in all fields of endeavor has paralleled closely our progress in the freedom of movement from place to place. New things to do and new ways to do them. Telephone, electric lights, automobiles, aircraft, all are symbols of better living. New places to go and new means of getting there.
Bringing texture and phenomena to virtual architecture should be seen as more than just trying to mimic reality. The virtual has to be more than just a simulation. Where a simulacra is something without an original, virtual architecture can operate on its own allusions to the physical realm, not as a simulation of the physical, but something that is reminiscent of and can engage in the cues of reality to bring about an increased virtuality. That being said, not virtual for virtuality's sake, virtuality targeted so that online spaces can function, feel, and provide the same sensation as their partners in reality. If we follow the simulation route, we will just end up designing digital office blocks, digital cinemas, and digital lecture theatres. These are hollow gestures that merely mimic existential space. The issue is that this is too centred on reproduction. A better question is, what does one get from a lecture theatre that isn't oculocentric? The lecture theatre has a light quality, a sound quality, a whole procession of entry sequences. These are things we understand as the architecture of the space, not an image of rows of chairs. One should be trying to replicate the phenomenology of the space digitally. Dimming smart room lighting, turning off other screen distractions. This may sound controlling and overbearing, but it approaches something that virtually mimics the experience of being in a lecture theatre. As we have been thrown into a world where the future may hold extended periods in and out of lockdown, which relates to being in and out of physical seclusion. More than ever, we require spaces that facilitate what the physical realm provides, both to simulate and to stimulate. Spaces such as art galleries, theatres and libraries, spaces integral to the cultural stimulation of our species, have had their doors barred. The library's node into the virtual currently stands as, at best, an online database for accessing information. But we know that a library provides more than just that. A myriad of reading rooms, working spaces, community engagement and more. The online library needs to be more than a database. Imagine a virtual library, not a cheap VR experience that simulates the library of the physical world, but a cyberspace, in the most true sense of the word, that facilitates all that its existential partner can provide. A space that accommodates collaboration through guiding users together, the quietness and the serenity of a reading room, and exposure to new ideas and conversations.
Move in the direction of freedom, in the direction of the road that we are taking, or whether it will move in the direction of slavery. I think it will depend in great measure upon what we do here in the United States, on the kind of society that we build, and the kind of strength that we maintain. We discussed tonight messages.
Signified Space engages with the full potential of virtual elements which, designed like domestic or public architecture, can become more meaningful landscapes than that of pure escapism as currently conceptualized in video games and entertainment industries. Cyberspace can finally become cyberspace. As a species, we hold in our hands a new window, not triple glazed, but transparent, through which we can fall into new architectural spaces, signified spaces.